Today I'm going to share with you my 7 takeaways from the book Start with Why by Simon Sinek. Hello friends, welcome back. You are with me on Be a Moon, Not a Star. Number 1. The opinions of others matter. The opinions of those we trust matters the most. Being a young father, I want to do everything right for my child. I have decided to buy a new car that provides safety for my child and my family. I have spent a week's time reading magazine, report, and eventually the advertisement had gone through convinced me to go for Volvo. A Friday night, the day before I buy the car, my wife and I went to the dinner party. While standing by, I met one of my friends who is a car enthusiast. And I proudly announced myself that to think about my child's safety, I'm going to buy a Volvo car tomorrow. Without a second thought, my friend retorted, "Why would you do that? Mercedes is the safest car on the road. If you care about your child, you will buy Mercedes." Wishing to be a good father, one of three things will happen. Number one, I will change my mind to buy Mercedes. Number two, I will stick with my original decision to buy Volvo. Number three, I will go back to my analysis sheet to redo my research in order to reassure my decision. Friends, what is your opinion on this? Which one would you prefer to do? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Unless the decision we make feels right, the stress will increase and the confidence will go down. However, opinions of others matter. The opinions of those we trust matters the most. Number two, success happens with why. A wise man once said, achievement comes when you pursue what you want, and success happens when you are clear with why you want. When we look back to the 19th century, Samuel Pierpont Langley was one of the best known persons in the field of astronomy. Like many other inventors of his days, he was attempting to build the world's first heavier airflying machine. His goal was to be the first to design machine power controlled manned flight. The bright side was Langley had all the required elements, such as funds, resources, and most of all, the bright minded people in his dream team. He also had a bold goal. Still, the team faced shortfalls, as they didn't have a clear sense of why. His commitment for building the flying machine was defined in terms of what he was doing and what he could get. More than anything else, he wanted to be the first. He wanted to be famous like Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell. That was his only driving motivation. During his days, Wright brothers were also committed in structuring the flying machine. Unlike Langley, Wright brothers didn't have the recipe for success. Worse, they seemed to have the formula for failure. Also, there was no fund for the mission. The proof of their commitment was self-evident, and the clear sense of why inspired the people in the community to join them. The team was so inspired that no matter how many setbacks they suffered, they would show up for more. What the Wright brothers were doing wasn't anything different from Langley or all the other inventors who were building the flying machine. But still, the Wright brothers did have something special. Well, for Wright brothers, it is not just what they build, but why it is important to build the flying machine. And believed greatly that if they could figure that out, it would change the world. The bottom line is, Samuel Pierpont Langley and Wright brothers were committed for the same invention. Both are intensively technical intellects, also had strong work ethics. But the difference is, Langley and team were motivated by what they do, and Wright brothers were motivated by why they do it. I strongly believe the Wright brothers' clear sense of why would be one of the epic testimonial that brought them success. Always remember that historic achievements like this have happened when motivated by why. Number three, what is good for one is not necessarily good for all. In general, what we do in order to improve things? Well, We constantly observe what others do and talk to our friends, colleagues, and read books to get the input or advice. At times, we are the dispenser of advice. But in reality, what is good for one is not necessarily good for all. To say it another way, if it is good for me, it's good for all, simply not true. For an instance, what car you think is best among Ferrari F340 and Honda Odyssey minivan? It depends on why we need car. I have a family of 6, so the two-seater Ferrari can't be a good fit for my family. However, if you plan for a date, then Honda Odyssey is probably not a wise choice. The point here is why the product exists and why someone wants it should balance the end product. Honda Odyssey has a plus side, in my opinion. Yes, it certainly gets better mileage. But still, the Ferrari lover could point out to prove how does it feel to have a car like Ferrari? Well, it describes more about the person than the product. The interesting thing is, people are willing to pay premium for Ferrari to get it in red. Whereas most who buy Honda Odyssey don't care about the color at all. A choice of the product is made when your why is met with company's why. There is no point in comparing Ferrari to a Honda Odyssey in making a decision with no understanding of its real purpose. I believe this is good enough for us to understand that what is good for one is not necessarily good for all. Number 4. Best practices aren't always best. At times, we are also interested in understanding the best practices of others to be a better version of ourselves. But in practical, best practices aren't always best. It's a flawed assumption. There is no wonder that we would have gained those extra pounds due to this pandemic. Well, I am not the exception. I almost look like an overcooked noodles. When I decided to shed few pounds, I asked my peers on advice for the diet that I need for healthy fat loss. One set of my friends advised me to take oatmeals and wheats. And other set of groups advised to take celery and rice milk. And some other colleagues advised me to take fruits and vegetables. And still somebody else came up to me and said brown rice and millets. The following week, I went to the supermarket and I bought oats, fruits, vegetables, celery, brown rice, and millets. Literally, I bought all of them. But I may or may not get benefited from these products. Nothing is assured. At the same time, what happens when I filter my decision with my purpose before I step into the supermarket? Definitely, I can spend less time choosing the right product that fit me. It doesn't mean that the other products aren't good. It just doesn't fit for me. There is nothing wrong looking up to what others do, but the challenge is to adapt what is right for you to elevate you to the next level in life. Only then your results are indeed the best. The rule of thumb is simply assimilating other ideas and inputs will inherently work for you, just not true. Number 5, the power of why. We can achieve beyond what we expect just by starting with why. Rather than asking what I do, how I do, ask yourself why I do. I still remember my college volleyball team. That was an intolerable defeat for a player to lose 10 matches in a row. It was also miserable that we lost in a huge difference. We felt dejected and devastated. We as a team tried working on those imperfections and our flaws. Promised to be punctual on the ground. Committed to practice 5 days a week. Furthermore, we also spent time analyzing the opponent weaknesses and our individual strength. The important of all, we recalled why we lost those matches. That why made us to practice again and again on those imperfections. The process was almost like sculpting a statue. The remarkable victory we made the following year was epic. That was the first ever medal we achieved. Why I call it as remarkable is we were the team to defeat the champion of a decade. The realization of why meant a lot about the victory. When we don't know our why, we don't know what to expect. Thus, we expect the minimum. But if you start with why, you can achieve beyond what we expect. Let me share with you another instance. Historically, the music industry was organized to sell albums. The model that evolved during a time limited us to stay at home to listen to music. Sony changed that in 1979 with the introduction of Walkman. Either Walkman or Discman were limited to carry the number of cassette tapes in addition to the device. Later, the MP3 music format changed that. High quality and relatively inexpensive songs can be stored in the music device. Our ability to walk out of the house with an easy to carry device transformed us to listen to music from outside of our home as well. It also transformed us from album collecting culture to song collecting culture. While the music industry was busy selling albums, the model that is no longer needed for customers, Apple introduced their iPod by offering 1,000 songs in your pocket. With iPod and iTunes, Apple did a marvelous job communicating the value of both MP3 and MP3 players. But the interesting thing is, Apple didn't invent MP3, nor the technology that became iPod, but they were credited with transforming the music industry with it. The company Creative was more qualified than Apple to introduce a digital music sound. The problem was they advertised their product as 5 GB MP3 player. It was the same message as Apple introduced 1,000 songs in your pocket. The difference is the company Creative told us what the product is, and Apple told us why we needed it. As people, we don't buy what companies sell, we buy why they sell it. When our why is met with companies' why, we go for it. 2.5% of population are innovators, as per the statistics. They are the small percent of population that challenges the rest of us to think and see the world little differently. Besides that, there are two different ways people naturally see and experience the world. One is the Y types and the other one is the out types. Y types have the power to change the world. Also, they focus on the things most people can't imagine, like the future. Bill Gates is an example of a Y type who imagined the world ruled by computers, unleashing the world's greatest potential. Now, he imagines the world in which malaria ceases to exist. And it will happen. And Wright brothers are another example, who imagined the world in which we would all be taken to the skies as easily as we catch the bus. And it happened. Number 6, manipulation. I have an interesting fact to say. We humans are highly influential. And I go insane to believe that we are influenced by just two factors. Most people get influenced by manipulation than inspiration. Let me tell you why. Think about e-commerce industry. How does manipulation happen here? Well, price drop, cashback, free trial, and so forth. Let's now talk about promotions. I am a long-time customer of Xfinity Comcast, the internet provider. I had a very basic plan of 25 Mbps that computes to $70 bill each month. It's been 4 complete years I was into the plan. I was happened to upgrade my plan on a sudden day, the day locked us behind doors. Yes, the pandemic. I was asked to work remotely, but unfortunately, my work requirements were in full-fledged with my internet plan. Thus, I tried contacting an agent on call to check for an offer. Sadly, no ongoing promotions were available for me. I was asked to call back in few weeks as they may have promotion later sometime. Few weeks later, I received an offer with a 1-year commitment for 100 Mbps for the same $70 bill that I pay for 25 Mbps. That's insane, I know. Xfinity has retained a customer offering a promotion that works brilliantly for me as a customer as well as the company. Perhaps the reason a majority offers promotion to retain its customers and to increase its sales margin. Well, it's not new for us. Our history shows manipulation had been happening for several decades. GM, the General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, and AMC were the four leading car manufacturers in the 1950s. GM dominated the business even before the international market kicked in the game. Later, international markets gradually surpassed their sales in the United States. That ended up unfavorable for GM. The skyrocketed GM shares were plummeted to 23% from 35 in 2007. To get back on sales, GM launched a cashback of $500 to $700 for every car and truck sold. The sales margin in GM boomed with their offer launched. Launching promotions aren't new to our system, especially for manufacturing industries. They lose little in the name of offering and gain more customers in the long run. Number 7. What makes a leader? Simon Sinek, an author and inspiring speaker, once said, leadership is not about power or authority. It's always about people. Being a leader requires two things. Let's see what are they. Years ago, I was on boarding with a group of strangers. The boat got stranded on the deserted island. While some people were panicking, the others were forming a little group to figure out how to get off the island. A middle-aged man with an assertive tone said, I will lead. Everyone was pleased that he broke the silence of being strange to each other. Then he stood apart from the group and asked about the ideas for the survival. A woman raised her hand and suggested that let's light some fire to get the attention of any passing boat or aircraft. This is a good idea, a leader said. Another person's advice was to forage for food in case we stuck here for a while. Also, he had come up with an idea to build a shelter to protect us from any venomous creatures. We really appreciate it. Later, a long voice hummed up from the back of the boat. We just turned back to see who was that. There was a man of 6 feet with keen eyes walking towards us. Ladies and gentlemen, I got something to say, he said. As we were crossing by the shore, I saw smoke out from the mast of the west side of the island. There must be a fishing village, he added. If we could get there, we would get some help, he said. That made us feel exhilarated. Also, we were intrigued about how to get there. Well, with your helping hands, we can shape some thick woods to go through, he said. Everyone in the boat raised our voice together and said, let's do it. Now, we have two options to follow. One, the guy who said, I will lead you all to get off the island. The other who said about reaching the fishing village to get help. Friends, put yourself in this situation and think, what is your opinion on this? Whom do you follow? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Here in the real time, we were happy to follow the leader who can find the fishing village. But the interesting thing is, no one else saw the fishing village except him. No photographies, no proof, nothing. But his ability to communicate convinced us to imagine the idea he had for the survival. This incident shows leadership required two things. Number 1, a vision that does not yet exist. Number 2, the ability to communicate. I realize that an amazing ability to communicate with absence of vision makes a person a great communicator, but not a good leader. For instance, the second guy could have just stood up and given a great speech about the importance of working together. We would have felt wonderful and excited, but still we would have no clue about how to get off the island. And another scenario is the first guy could have a great vision to get us out from the island, but his lack of ability to communicate failed to convince us. You may have a question where the vision comes from. That's the power of why. Leaders never start with what needs to be done. Leaders start with why we need to do things. Let me underline that leadership requires both a vision and the ability to communicate. Let me recap those 7 takeaways real quick. Number 1, the opinions of others matter. The opinions of those we trust matters the most. Number 2, success happens with a why. Number 3, what is good for one is not necessarily good for all. Number 4, best practices aren't always best. Number 5, the power of why. Number 6, manipulation. And number 7, what makes a leader. Hope you guys find this interesting. We'll see you there in another video 2 weeks from now. Until then, I am Prakash, signing off.